Good.
So good morning everybody and welcome to another episode of Topical Talks with Theo and Andy.
Morning.
Morning. So
how are you today, Andy?
I'm doing great actually. I say that because we've both just been to the gym and as most of you know, I mean we actually do this over a coffee in a coffee shop because we started doing this as just a little bit of fun after a gym workout. So the reason why we have picked this topic today, and I'm not going to share it just yet, is because, and this is something that affects millions and millions and millions of people daily around the world. Actually, it would probably go into the billions in some ways, I'd say.
Because it affects all of us, let's face it.
It does affect all of us. And it's interesting because our gym is on two platforms, so I was upstairs waiting for a piece of machinery, and I just looked around the whole room, and because we come at 6 o'clock in the morning, you get the regulars, and you develop some rapport and some engagements with these regulars. And there was this one particular person who Theo introduced me to, and who looked lost. And this is what this topic is about. It's being lost and not knowing what to do, and the thing is, and then not knowing where to start. And I'm not going to mention this girl's name out of respect to her, but she's a very attractive girl, incredibly tenacious in the gym when it comes to exercise, and very motivated to actually get fit. However, her life is not in a place where she actually wants to be. And I'm sure many of us can probably relate to this. And I actually said to her that she was comfortable being uncomfortable. Do you get what I say? Do you get what I mean by that?
Because what we're doing is we like what's familiar to us.
Yeah.
And you can apply this to any area. For instance, people. We like people who are familiar to us. We like foods that are familiar. We dislike things that are unfamiliar. Same thing for experiences. And of course, where do we form the templates of our expectations in life? It's from our childhood. So for instance, if someone had divorced parents, then they're more likely to grow up and form relationships with that which end up splitting apart. So
But why is that?
It's called fulfilling your own prophecy. That's the psychological terminology.
So if your dad's a deadbeat, are you going to be a deadbeat as well?
It depends. If you're a girl, you're going to pick a deadbeat partner, for sure. You're going to be more likely to pick a deadbeat partner.
Right. Isn't that interesting? Because the thing is, because you've got so much certainty from the fact that your father loves you in that relationship, and therefore you actually look to actually imprint yourself onto a partner.
All it is we seek that which is familiar to us, and you can apply it to any avenue of life.
Wow, isn't that interesting?
And therefore people say so if you suffered as a kid, then you're going to pick situations which make you suffer in a similar way.
So how do you change that?
How do you change it? By self-awareness for a start, because a lot of people don't even realize they're doing it.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, why does anybody do anything? Because they're getting something out of it. Of course, the thing is, it could be completely illogical. It could be a familiar type of suffering they're getting out of it. And then you have to make them aware of it, and they'll think themselves, my God, it really isn't logical, is it? Maybe I should do something about it. You can't tell them. They have to become self-aware and make that decision themselves.
It's an interesting one. I know a situation, and I suppose I've been through it as well. I mean, you know, when people actually want to make change in their life, you know, if you are in that uncomfortable place, but it's bearably uncomfortable, you will settle for that. You'll fit into that little role, and your life will just amble around in a circle. And it's and it's a case that you're not growing. And if you don't grow, ultimately it's like a plant, they say. If the plant's not growing, it's dying. And if you're not growing inside, you're dying. It's why, in some cases, so many people who go into old people's homes have I don't know if people are aware of that, they have like a 2-year lifespan. Because the thing is, they've got no purpose. They've got they've got nothing now to actually grow for. So they just wither away and die. I said it about Charles Kennedy, who was the Liberal Democrat leader many years ago. He was one of the, I thought he was an exceptional politician. I didn't like his politics, but I thought he was an exceptional politician. And I had the pleasure of working with him many years ago. And when he lost his seat in the 2015 general election, he died weeks later. and we all know he had, or there was, actually I think we all know he had a drink problem. But the thing is, after he lost his seat, I believe, I can't be certain, but I believe he lost his purpose in life, and that's when he actually just withered away, because he had nothing to contribute anymore.
Because the difficulty is, what we equate very much what we do with ourselves, and that's one of the number one mistakes. First of all, we need to have our own identities and not just the identity of what we do.
So it's an interesting one, because in terms of when people change for two reasons: either out of inspiration or desperation. And desperation is the far more powerful trigger. So when you hear about people, once you've hit rock bottom and there's no further way down, the only way is you can actually bounce up it bounces up. And I remember seeing, and I think I said this in a previous podcast actually, I was in a coffee shop in Gloucester Road, and there was all these quotes on the wall, and one of the quotes on the wall said, "Sometimes you actually have to lie in the gutter to be able to see the stars," and that's something that really resonated with me. However, not everyone should actually have to get to that situation. So if you are lost and you want to change something in your life, you've got to get out of the current pattern and the current routine and the habitual nature of how your life is going round. You've got to look at what your bad habits are. So what Theo talks about, self-awareness, is very much is very, very important in terms of how you're actually going to move forward. But first, you've got to be self-accepting of where you are right now.
Yeah, because the two ways we do things is either because we think we need to or because we want to. And you can end up chronically unhappy because you may think that you need your current structure of life, but you may not want to. And doing something that you think you need but you don't want causes chronic unhappiness.
Right.
So for instance, if you were abused as a kid, you're much more likely to pick a relationship where you are abused. In fact, you may even invite the abuse. This is the interesting thing, because then it becomes familiar, to the extent that actually a lot of women who were abused will, if they pick a really nice guy, they will end up irritating him so much, and if he still doesn't abuse them, they'll say, "Why aren't you hitting me?" That's how powerful childhood programming is. They'll say, "Why aren't you hitting me?"
But self-awareness for that isn't enough, surely.
Well,
there's got to be a lot more to it than that. I mean, there's a lot of, that's just peeling. Self-awareness is just like peeling the top layer of the onion. I mean,
it starts with self-awareness, but sometimes you do have to actually get the people to work through their childhood experiences, because there's various levels of working through them. So, for instance, the first level is ignoring them altogether, which is clearly no good for anyone.
Sorry, can you say that a little bit louder? I think we probably missed it.
The first level is what people often do is they try and ignore the nasty things they went through altogether as a child.
But and they bury that very deep, don't they?
Absolutely. The next thing they do is you may say, okay, you've got to express the appropriate emotions for it, which often is anger. But clearly that doesn't really help anyone either. The second thing, the second level that supposedly more wise people tell you to do, is that you have to accept. Get over it, accept. But if you think about it, acceptance for something really bad, that's not healthy either. What you have to do is understand and forgive. Because very few people are actually intrinsically bad. They just know no better. So if you are able to understand and forgive, you're not saying
what are you forgiving? I understand what you mean by forgiving.
Their actions.
Forgiving of other people's actions.
Yeah. But you're not saying it's right. You're saying, I understand, I forgive you. I'm not giving you carte blanche. I'm not going to let you do it again, but I forgive you. It's only like that you can disengage from it and make it and have it stop harming you. So you can then move forward yourself.
So if someone was listening to this, let's be honest, someone was listening to this, so all of our 1 subscribers, although I think we actually are growing now, and we are now also on iTunes.
We are indeed.
Yeah, so...
all you do is you go onto podcasts, and then when you hit the little podcast category, you put in top of the talk, and you'll see all of our talks come up.
So we've got about 40, I think we've got over 40 talks by now, haven't we?
More than that.
Yeah, so... Yeah. So in terms of what we were saying, I lost track about that one as we were pitching ourselves there. So in terms of if people actually want to make that change, where do they start?
The different levels of
yeah.
how
Okay.
you deal with the
So you're
trauma.
a level. Can you just remind us again what level 1 was, just briefly?
Level 1 is where you're numb and you're trying to ignore it, and that's almost a post-traumatic stage. Level 2 is where people tell you, get your emotions out, get them all out, where you're just super angry. Of course, that's just destructive. The next level,
But you should do that, shouldn't you? You should get all those emotions out, because otherwise you're just burying all that
yes,
emotion.
but you shouldn't stay stuck at that level.
Isn't there a thing called? Sorry, I interrupted there.
Can we just go through the others?
Okay,
the next
go on.
level is acceptance, but acceptance is not normal for something bad, so that's obviously not healthy either. But the healthiest level is where you understand, because very few people are intrinsically bad, they just know no better. So you say, I understand, I forgive you, it wasn't my fault, I forgive you, it doesn't mean it was right, doesn't mean I'll let you do it again, I forgive you, so I can move forwards. That's how you get it stopping you, affecting you for the rest of your life, so you can move forward in healthy relationships.
Wow, that's really interesting. It's interesting. There's a thing, and I did it years ago, and I don't have any expertise in this area, but there's a method. I remember doing this course, and there's a method called the Sedona method. And I'm going to have to Google it and come back to you on that one, guys, because it's been a while since I did that. But one of the things we did is we actually had a screaming room on this particular course, and we just went and screamed at someone, and you picked up someone in the audience who resembled what you were screaming at. It wasn't them you were screaming at because it was not personal. So I remember a woman picking me up from the audience, and she wanted to use me as a screaming board. And I, at the time, I was probably going through my insecure stage, and I was quite almost offended that she'd actually picked me to scream at. And what you have to do is you actually have to protect yourself, because it isn't about you, it's all about her letting out her emotions. It just so happens that I resembled her father as she was screaming at me, but I was the closest one she could find to actually to do that.
But that's how a lot of therapy works with psychologists, and it's called transference. So in other words, the therapist begins mirroring significant people from your past about whom you have had problems with. So at some point you may transfer the feelings against your abusive father onto the therapist, for instance.
Yes. So that actually happened, but I think we're going to come back with the Sedona method next week and actually talk about what it really is, and it's about release. So I think it's all to do with releasing.
Well, that's right. And as I said to you, if you go through therapy with a therapist, then this will be one of the stages where you transfer and you express all your anger, and it's up to the therapist then to deal with it in a safe, contained environment, until eventually you work through the stages of acceptance and then forgiveness. But the therapist has to be skillful enough to guide you through that.
I mean, one thing I've always found, and someone did say it to me once, is, you know what? Go out into an open field and just let it all out. And let it all out. Let all the emotions, let all the stuff that you've buried deep in there, and just bring it to the surface and let it go out. And it's best, And the worst thing you can do is tell people as well, oh, don't cry. Actually, they should cry, because the thing is, it's your body's defense mechanism of release. All right.
But you see, that's just one little aspect of it, and
of course it is one little aspect.
You do need a professional to guide you through it.
Yeah. You're not gonna start recommending someone goes on medication now, are you, Theo?
It depends, but okay. We're not talking about medication for this right now.
Good. Thank God.
And another type of therapy is a processing therapy, which some people try and deal with a therapy called eye movement desensitization reprocessing, or EMDR. So that's a...
Actually, come on, Theo. I'm gonna, let's liven this one up a little bit here, because
Well, that's a quick
You need
way
to talk
of
to.
doing
You
it.
need to talk to me. I think you need to explain that one as those with children because
Well, that
that sounded far too intellectual
it
for
does
everybody.
work.